Okay, we can start now. Greetings to all. Welcome to GSOC Decoded, a fireside chat with GSOC mentees by Csc NITW Warangal in partnership with GDSC Warangal. Now, I'd like to start with a small introduction on CSC NITW. CSEA or Computer Science and Engineering Association, NITW Warangal is the official branch association of our college, which started in 2002. We work continuously for the welfare of our students of our college. CSEA conducts events around the year for the benefit of the students of not just CSE but other branches too. Moving on, I have a small introduction for GDSC NIT Warangal. It is a community group for college and university students interested in Google Developer Technologies. GDSC NHW is a community of students which aims to connect to peers interested in coding and development. Since it is a community for everyone, there's no prerequisite and it is open to all. And students from all undergraduate or graduate programs with an interest in growing as a developer are welcome. By joining GDSC, students grow their knowledge in a peer-to-peer learning environment and build solutions for local business and the community. Now we have a small presentation on GSOC, and I'd like to request Deepak to continue with the same.
Awesome. Thank you. So let me share my screen. We have a great presentation, guys. So let's start. I'll help you folks get a bit familiar with what Gsoc is before our main event. That is a fireside chat with our guests who have been Gsoc mentors in the past. We are very fortunate to have them today. Thank you for joining us. And let's get started with the second slide. What is open source? GSOC focuses on open source, so introducing it here is a must, right? So what is open source is a fair question, and let's get started. Computer software where the software code is distributed under an open source license that allows anyone to study, change, improve, and distribute the software. Nice term, right? So I myself can vouch for it. Being a part of open source communities like Jenkins, Leofy, I totally appreciate how inclusive these communities are. Just like the second and third points, promotes collaboration, community of dedicated developers, truly watch for it. What is Google Summer of Code? This is the main question for today, but probably everybody knows about what Google Summer of Code is. Like everybody knows, everybody has Google and all. But let me tell you a story. So everybody knows Larry Page, right? One of the co-founders of Google. So in 2005, he had this thought that students learn a hell lot of academics, but there's a large gap between practical exposure and students' abilities. So Larry wanted Google to solve this. All right. So also there were different problems like geographical problems, which certainly could be a big factor in today's world. Like let's say we take New York. So New York has a whole lot of opportunities, loads of internships, but there may be some places like in Africa or something, like they might not even see a paid internship, like let alone internship, but being paid is a big difference. So yeah, that is what I said. This had been the story. So in the year 2005, a total of 40 projects and 400 students began the experiment we now know as GSOC. The main aim was to introduce open source to the students so that they could get these opportunities. Right here, goals of the program. Introduce students to open source software development, help open source projects bring in new, excited developers who stay after the program ends. Quite good for the community and as well as the program which they are in. Give students exposure to real world software development scenarios like testing, version control, software licensing. You guys are quite familiar with all this. So also the last but not the least point is create more open source code for all to use. Like I myself am a graphic designer, so I've been using Inkscape and stuff. So this has been one of the good things about it. Now, how GSOC works. Here's a timeline that you guys would want to pay close attention to. All right. First, open source software projects apply to be mentor organizations. Google chooses the organization to participate. According to stats, in the year 2020, around 198 organizations got to be a part of it. Next is students submit project proposals to mentor organizations. Mentor organizations choose the students they like. Students are paired with a mentor to help them throughout the project. And finally, coding begins. Students work on their project under the guidance of the mentor over a period of 10 weeks. Evaluations are must, right? Everybody evaluates. So students must pass two evaluations. Students who pass each evaluation are paid a stipend for the work. At the conclusion of GSOC, students submit the code they have written for the project for everyone to see and use. Next is eligibility. Over 18 upon registration for program. We guys are over 18, so safe point over here. Accepted into or enrolled in a post secondary educational program by the student acceptance days, or graduate from post secondary program between December 1, 2020 and May 17, 2021. Eligible to work in the country in which you reside. You guys have to pay close attention to this. Have been accepted in no more than one previous GSOC, not a resident of a US embargo. So I guess we are Indian, so we are safe here. Now let's start with the project timeline. This is the stats I'm looking at the 2021 program timeline. So uh, the next year's program timeline has not been like given out. So take a reference for from how it works. So from January 29 and February 29, organizations applications open. On March 9, accepted GSOC organizations were announced. From March 29 to April 13, students submit their proposals, like the period where every student has to meet the organizations and stuff. May 17, accepted students are announced. May 17 to June 7, sorry, community bonding period with OX. From June 7 to August 23, students code the summer way. And on August 31, successful students projects are announced. So here are some statistics to get you a bit familiar with how the project has been this far. Google Summer of Code, in the span of 16 years, around 16,000 students from 111 countries have been accepted into GSOC. Countries with more students, by far India leads from 4,684 mentees, United States with 2,640 mentees, and Germany with 909 mentees. Approximately 38 million lines of code have been written. So before the great PPT ends, some of the useful links. We'll post you these links on the chat as well, and you'll also have access to the PPT. So don't worry about that. So now we are heading towards our main session, the fireside chat. So Tanisha, they could take on from here.
Yeah, thank you, Deepak, for this wonderful presentation. Moving on, I'd like to welcome our speakers for the event and give a short introduction on them. Our first speaker is Somal Chakraborty. He is an undergraduate student at NIT Warangal. He works as an app developer and have been gaining experience in scalable app building, testing, and deployment. And as a part of his entrepreneur venture, he has developed a platform called Scribble.com. Our next speaker is Aditya Srivastav, who is an undergraduate third year student at NIT Warangal and also an upcoming intern at Salesforce. He worked with GSOC 2021 and is also part of Wikimedia Foundation. And uh, beside this, he is also an Android and web developer. So, welcoming our speakers, we have some general questions for them, starting with the experience as GSOC mentee, and also we would like to know about the organization that they're part of and how did they actually get to know about GSOC. So, starting off with Somal, if you could. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me. So yeah, so you're asking about my GSOC experience, right? So I have been a part of
Yes.
MetaBrinks organization in 2020 in my Google Summer of Code project. And to talk about how did I hear about that? So I was into open source and my so that I got into GSOC in my second year of college. So from my first year of college, I started app development. So in second year of college, looking for opportunity where I can apply the knowledge. Right. So from that's when from that point I started researching about Google Summer of Code, and then finally prepared and then could crack it. What was your follow-up question, if you can ask?
Yeah. Next question is like most of the participants like over here are new to open source. We had a small introduction on open source by Deepak, but how was your experience with open source and how did you get started with it?
See, my experience with open source, I don't recommend to go through the same. So, if you ask me to talk about how newbies should be introduced to open source, so let's talk about it this way. So basically, the students I'm addressing right now, they're mostly in their first year, second year, third year, right? So whenever you will go to, like, let's say you go for internship, right? So the thing with students right now is there is abundant of information, right? So I got one guy asking me that, see, there is machine learning, artificial intelligence, there are lots of things. Which one should I work upon? Like, which thing should I choose to then make a project and then work on it, right? So the basic thing is, if you get into software design, or let's say software development, so basically you will need to software development is a big thing, right? So basically, as you are into your first year, second year, third year, you need to work at the lower level of the stacks. So let's say, if I divide software development into different stacks, let's say the bottom thing is the clean code, learning to write clean code, right? Above this, what comes is the paradigms. Let's say object-oriented programming, or functional programming, everything. After that, the point comes where your mentor or someone senior in your company, or wherever you join internship. Let's say you are an intern at Microsoft, right? So someone who is your mentor, he will design. Let's say you are given a project, right? So he will design how to write the code, right? He will design what modules should follow what modules and everything. What you, as an intern, what you will do in the next 1 year, while you're in college, and or in your internship, or even when you are starting out as a software development or a software developer, or even in open source, what you will do is basically you need to write clean code, and then
Yeah.
you need to learn the basic paradigms. Let's say for object oriented programming, or let's say functional programming, you need to learn this, right? Now, where do you learn to write clean code? So when I say clean code, I don't mean like, see, you all must be doing CP, right? Competitive programming, most of the people are doing right now. So what happens in competitive programming is, let's say you are given a problem, you have to solve it, right? So you start with the definitions, like, let's say I have two integers, integer a b, I name them a b, and then I take the inputs, which according to clean code is wrong, which you should not do, because a b doesn't define you're taking like input for what, right? So that's why
Yeah.
you need to name the variables, name the functions, you need to learn to optimize. So all those things. So what I have read, like, not in my first year, second year, of course, I started reading them in my second year, third year. So basically the thing with me, I'm saying I'm able to talk to you about this is because for the past 2 years I've been working. So mostly I'll be graduating with 2 years work experience. So with that, I've met a lot of people, right? So they've given me various resources. So two resources that mainly you should focus on. You should not like get puzzled by should I learn machine learning or artificial intelligence. First thing you need to do is, if you want to do something besides CP, suppose you want to make a project, first thing you need to do is take a web app, not a website. Take a web app, start
Mm-hmm.
implementing, design the stack. Let's say you want to implement a month stack, right? You take
Mm-hmm.
it, you make a project, right? You don't have to build a $1 billion startup. Just take a project and start working on it, right? So when you build one project, let's say you build a web app, then you go on and build another web app. So what that does is, it gives you wholesome knowledge, right? So when you have, let's say you have built one project, then you go, and I'll suggest you two books, if someone's listening to it, and if you have pen and paper, you can note them down. So first book is Clean Code by you can get a PDF, or you can, if you are willing to pay, you can get on Amazon as well. So you can search and buy that book. It's called Clean Code by Uncle Bob. It's really, really important for you to have the fundamentals of clean code. Otherwise, you will not like mostly not survive in an internship. You'll have a hard time, right? So write down this book. It's called Clean Code by Uncle Bob, and there is another book which is on your architecture. Like if it will tell you about object-oriented programming, and yeah, someone has read, Kushagra has read that. Yeah. So once you have like known about it, Clean Code, then the next book you should read is Clean Architecture. That's also by Uncle Bob. So these two books you must read. You should not like go and buy a Udemy course or go and buy let's say a YouTube something on YouTube. You should not spend hours on YouTube and stuff. Just buy these two books and then start working, just reading those books and start working on them. Do not like ponder about whether should start a machine learning project or artificial intelligence. Just do these three basic things, and you can then write better code than any of your peers at least. So yeah, before going to open source, make sure this fundamentals are completely perfect for you. Yeah, I'll give you the link. So I'm asking who is the author, right? Okay. Yeah, any other follow-up question if you have?
Yeah. Okay. So next question here is, what did GSOC teach you that simple open source like did not?
See, simple open source is not it's not a motivated process, right? If you are self-motivated, then you do it, and then you start working on it. You take up a project whenever you have time, you go and do it, right? But in case of GSOC, what happens is you are given an evaluation period. You work on a large code base. You have to understand that code base. You work under a mentor. Mentor gives you feedback. Then a mentor teaches you how to write, what to write and what not to write, what effects it can have. You learn to have meetings with people. You build your communication skill. So it's working. It's as good as working in a company, but in a more concentrated manner. So you get to learn a lot of things that open source doesn't teach you because it's very vast and there is no one that you can look up to. It usually suppose you have something to ask on an open source repo. So you like let's say you put a comment or you raise an issue. So in that case, someone will reply in like 1 to 2 days, and then this is like the time space is not defined there, right? So you don't get to grow much or faster. But in GSOC, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. And some students think that GSOC is overrated, but is it is or not?
Okay,
Like,
so
why is it so popular?
see the benefits beside open source that stays. Besides that, you get to earn a good handsome stipend, right? Then you get to, if you're lucky, you get to get tour as well. For example, I had the opportunity, but I couldn't due to COVID to go, and then it was like go to I guess the offices in France. So I had a tour. Like had a chance to go there and then visit and then attend the summit.
Mm.
Yeah, so if you attach these things to any other program, they'll also be attractive in your work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We request Aditya to share his experience too in GSOC. Uh,
Am I audible, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So for me, what was the first question?
Hello.
Okay.
Yes.
So what was the first question?
Yeah. First question is like your experience in GSOC.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I worked on an Android project with Wikimedia Foundation. So for the Wikimedia Foundation, we like know about Wikipedia. So Wikimedia Foundation is something that is above Wikipedia and just governs this open source projects. So for me, it was contributing to Android project and adding some features to it. I was like mentored by highly experienced people in this field, and yeah, I completed a project in Android wherein I had to apply some learnings which I had from my first years, and yeah, so that was it. And also finally, I got to like get the part of the community and contribute good amount of code to that, and that's a useful code. So that was the thing with the GSOC. Yep.
Yeah, okay. And another same question. How was experience with open source?
So yeah, open source. I started open source a year back. It was introduced to me by like the seniors of my college. We'll be joined by Nabagata, so he was the one to introduce us to open source and GSOC. So that was my journey. That was the starting point where I got to learn about open source and GSOC in general. From that, like there was this Hacktoberfest, which all might be familiar with. So we had like a contribution in that Hacktoberfest. And then I followed with some repositories with C++ and some repositories with Java to get a hold on Git and GitHub. And then finally, I went with Wikimedia Foundation and made my useful contribution to them. Yeah. So,
Okay, thank you so much. Now we have some common doubts regarding applications. Anyone could take this up. First question is, uh, how do any participant have to be an avid contributor to open source for applying?
So there are different organizations. There are classification of organizations. Some of them, like for me, the organization was solely on GitHub. So everything I did, every code I wrote was part of GitHub, and I had to just collaborate on it. Some organization have this thing like they have their own project management, and you can contribute on there. It is not that open source, but some parts of that project are open source, and you have to contribute to them. Uh, and so the application process differs a lot. So if the organization is solely open, you need to know about that organization, you need to contribute to that organization to get a part of it in GSOC. And if the organization is like a secured organization, or only some part of the code is required, you just need a good proposal, a strong value in your proposal, like how would you go about solving this problem, to just contribute to the project. So finally, it does depend on your organization, it does depend on your research, what you are doing, and also on your field. So if you did some open source contribution before, it generally adds to your proposal. But if you haven't, that's also nice. You can just go on and search for those organizations which do not generally require these contributions. So, yep.
Okay. And what type of coding skills are necessary to increase selection chances? Anyone could pick this up.
So I'll show you I'll show you to address Kushagra's question. I'll show you what exactly you need to do to uh, uh, if you can see my screen. I just started sharing. Yeah.
Yes.
So how you
Yep.
can search for your organization is you go to Google, type GSOC, so you get this archive, right? So get in there. So let's say your specialty is Android. You type Android, right? Now you get a list of projects and organizations who has worked on Android, right? So what you need to do is firstly see as you are participating. Uh, let's just get this thing clear first. Yeah. So as you are participating, an organization is also participating in Google Summer of Code, right? So you need to also pick organizations. Not only organizations will pick you. So first and foremost thing is to find an organization. Now, how do you find an organization? Is let's say um, let's say you have let's say you have OpenMRS as an organization, right? Then you have OpenPGP. Yeah. So what you need to do is see there is this thing, the organizations by year, right? So let's say you want to find OpenMRS, right? Or let's say let's find my organization, MentorBrains. So what you see is let's say in 2016 was MentorBrains a part of Google Summer of Code? Yeah. 2017 was MentorBrains a part? Yes. 2018, 19, 20, 2021. So MetaVin has been a part of Google Summer of Code. So there are like high chance, I'd say around 95 to 99% chances are there that MetaVins will also be in 2022, right? So how do you find like I know MetaVins, so I've searched MetaVins. So if you don't know an organization, what you should do is, let's say you search Android, you find out a few organizations here, right? Let's say which organizations worked in Android in 2021. So you get a few organizations here, right? So you list them down, you make an Excel sheet, right? Let's say you make three organizations. So try to choose two or three organizations, because you will not be able to pick more, contribute to more than two or three. So try to pick an organization this way. So firstly, you filter out two, three organizations. So once you're done, you write in an Excel sheet. Then in the columns, let's say, as I said, if you search MetaVins, so you make a column like 2016 MetaBeans was present 17 to 17 till 21. So let's say we take last 5 years statistics. In all
Yeah.
those years, MetaBeans was present in MetaBeans was part of Google Summer of Code, right? So there are high chances of MetaBeans. Let's say we take OpenMRS. So OpenMRS was in 2018, it was in 19, 20, and as well as 2021. So it has been consistently part of Google Summer of Code for the last 4 years. Right. So it also has a chance to be a part of GSOC 2022. So similarly, you like sort the organizations, and then from apply to top one or top two. Let's say top two, three. Top two,
Yeah.
three you pick and then apply to it. So that's how we filter an organization. So I'll tell you if you want me to tell you the following process, I can tell you that as well.
Yeah, sure.
So once you have picked up an organization, what you need to do is, let's say I go to MetaBrains, I search MetaBrains, or you can, what you can do is, yeah. So most of the organizations has this thing called IRC, right? So let's say you have a project that you want to pick up. First, you have to see what projects the organization had. Right. So the best thing to do is to go to Gsoc website. So in 2021, MetaBrains has this. Yeah. So in 2021, MetaBrains has this had this project, and then this project, and then this project. Right. So whenever, let's say I want to contribute to this project, so I click on get the code. So you'll get a guidance about this project, right? So first thing is you need to read this thing, right? Doesn't matter if you understand it completely or if you just get an idea. The thing is to get an idea, right? So what do? You go to Google Summer of Code website. Yeah, Google Summer of Code website. Then you like find your organization, let's say MetaBrains, and then you pick up any of the project they have done, and then you read the blog about that project, right? So once you've
Yeah.
done that, you have an idea. Then you move to, let's say, MetaBrains. You want to contact MetaBrains because you want to have an idea of whether you can contribute, right? So you can see this is this thing called IRC, right? So since the chats are on public domain, you can go and read their chats as well. So I'm not logging into IRC, but you can log into IRC. IRC just open source chatting platform that MetaBrains IRC is managed by MetaBrains. So any question that you have, it will directly be addressed to the people who are managing the projects, right? So let's say you have an idea after you have read this thing. So after that, you go and ask whether this project is still available or can I contribute to this project. So then someone will respond, and then you can ask for any doubt, but do not ask silly questions like, "Can you explain me the project entirely?" Nobody's
Yeah.
gonna explain you the project entirely. You can ask specific doubts like, "Why is this tag chosen?" or "Why is this a code written this way?" Can I contribute to this? I can find a bug in this. So mostly the thing is you need to find a bug and you need to fix it. So let's say I want to open MetaBrains has this service called Music Brains. Let's say I want to open this project, right? So I go to music brains, meta brains. See, this is the organization, right? So I go to GitHub, their GitHub, and I check. Since I'm not signed in here, so I'm not able to get access to the issues. But yeah, so you go to their GitHub, then you can see there is a tab called issues here, right? Or you can see the latest pull requests. What are they working on, right? So if you can solve an issue, or if you can create an issue here, then this will reach those people. So the thing is, you have to constantly be in attention, right? You have to work, you have to push something, you have to solve an issue. So try contributing. That's how you build a rapport with the organization. So ultimately, they will consider you as a sincere participant, and then they will consider you for Google Summer of Code, because the uh, selection lies in their hand, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I
Second
guess
question.
this is very much clear. Next question is like, how can a particular candidate make his, like, what do I say? Yeah, make his proposal like technical and attractive.
Yeah, so how I did it was, in my proposal, I don't have the proposal unfortunately, but in
Mm,
my proposal, let's say you are working for an app. I work for an app. So what you need to do is you basically need to show, let's say I have a problem in the app that, let's say I want to design a login screen, right?
mm,
So the thing is, they don't have a login screen. So what I want to do is I want to tell them that you don't have a login screen, firstly. Secondly, how I plan to implement it. And thirdly, a demo of any GitHub repo or anything that you have already implemented something like this, right? And finally, what most people miss, and but that is really important, is to show a visual presentation, right? If you, let's say, put attractive UI, a video, or anything that you have designed for the login screen, that really catches the eye, right? Catches the attention. So if anyone's noting down, please note down these 3 4 points while writing proposal. So you need to write a good proposal that shows that in which you describe that, yeah, I will do it this way. And in the second part, you tell them that this is how I'm planning to do it, and there is a demo. In the final part, you show a working demo of how this thing work. So not everything is possible to not every case it is possible to create a demo. In that case, what you do is you write an extensive technical details of how you plan to implement it and how it is going to affect it, and then how yeah, what bugs would be addressed by this.
okay.
If Aditya has any
Aditya,
comment to add, you can
yeah,
add.
Yep.
yeah. Could you tell us something about your proposal?
Yeah, so what my organization had this draft thing. So what we have is a pre-made doc wherein you have to just fill out the questions and answers about how you will. There's three technical, as Bhaiya said, there are like parts to the proposal wherein you describe why and about yourself first of all, and then how you'll be working on the project, about the project you'll be working on, and then some time about the project, and finally your open source contribution, so as to make your proposal to make you stand out, like I have contributed to these things and I can surely make contribution to this project. So there was for us it was for the first second portion of the proposal we had template, so we just have to fill in the questions like what how you have contributed to the organization, or are you eligible for this, and then why you should be selected for this organization. And there were technical questions as well as the questions about your mindset, that how will this help you, or how would this help the Wikimedia Foundation in general. So these were the things we had to fill in the first two sections, and then there was this third section, which is like the most important section, wherein you had to fill in the whole table describing how you will go about solving this project. We have you have to distribute your work within weeks, writing the test cases or documentation in the respective areas, and then there are like evaluations in the 2 sections. So as soon as you get the evaluation, you try to like re-implement those errors or re-implement those bugs which have been created in the sections. So you have to describe everything, how you'll go about it, and then finally you had to make a link to your contribution to the current repositories and contribution to the other open source projects, so that they can be pretty sure that you can contribute to this and you have like the power to finish this project in time. And yeah, for the timeline part, I was like given introduction that yeah, I was given like introduction about this thing timeline by the mentors, and they said specifically that your timeline should not be very strict, because you can't describe something that is in the future, or you can't like plan something in the future. So it should be something that can be achievable and not very strict to follow. So if there is some modification required, that should be done.
Okay, thank you, Aditya. Next question is like how supportive are the GSOC
Yeah,
mentors,
I'm aware of that thing.
and is it beneficial to connect with previous GSOC mentors before applying?
See, if you make sense to those people, they'll obviously reply in like something that's helpful. Secondly, do not directly message any mentor that's considered offensive. Right. So whatever you put only on the like general channels so that everyone can see it. Even if you text someone personally, they will not reply. They'll ask you to move the conversation to the general channel. So whatever you have to ask in the general channel.
Okay. And next one is if someone is unaware of Git platform, or do he or she need to learn Git in advance before applying?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, technically you have to know ins and out of this, and not in very detail, cause it's only like not it's not that required, but you have to know ins and out of it, how you
Yeah.
handle the errors. So for me, there was like certain repositories in which they specifically ask for some command, like you rebase the project, or you just squash and merge the thing so that this can be accepted. So these things you have to take care, but rest you need to know the general workflow and how you need to work on it. Yep.
Mhm.
So basics are
Yeah,
required.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That's why like when you Aditya, can you mute? I think it's echoing. Yeah. So that's why when you ask the difference between open source and GSOC, I told students to focus on creating projects. So when you create projects, what happens is you write code and also you learn to host it on GitHub. Right, hosting it on GitHub is really important because not GitHub, you need to learn how Git works, because GitHub, Bitbucket, anything they can pick up, they can host their project anywhere. But you need to learn the basic Git commands. So it doesn't take much time. It's like learning Python only. It'll take an hour at most. Right. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And like are multiple proposals accepted while applying?
I'm not sure what do you mean by multiple proposals. Is it like different organizations accept?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, you
Exactly.
will be only accepted to one organization. But one project
Like,
can
can
have,
we submit multiple proposals to different
yeah,
organizations?
you can submit multiple, but mm, I would suggest to apply to maximum two. Otherwise, you'll spend a lot of time reading the code base of organizations. You will not get even selected.
And can we also submit a group idea for project?
No, group ID is not allowed.
Not allowed. Okay, individual ones. The last
Yeah.
question will be how
For
will,
the
yeah, okay.
group one, I would say like in my organization, there was this group, they had contributed in the group, but the proposal was made singular, like everyone has to like make a single proposal, and then they were joined as a group to participate in a project. So the proposal should be like discrete, but then you may need to work on a group, like you may need to collaborate. So that's why Git has a very important role, and GitHub, so that you can collaborate on the project. Yep.
Okay. Next up is uh, in which months is it actually conducted?
So
The
it mostly
program.
starts, yeah, it mostly, so for 2021, I can tell about the timeline. but mostly starts in May and then ends in August. Yeah.
Okay. And is any prior experience or knowledge required?
Yes, you need, but otherwise, how will you write? Like you need to learn massive amount of. You need to learn to read the code base, right? The code base is huge. If you don't know how to write code, you'll need. But see, you don't have to get puzzled by what should I learn, because you can pick up. The basic is you should know networking. Let's say you want to make an API call, you don't know how to receive the call back. You don't know about futures of JavaScript, then
Mm,
async await. This basics you need to know. That's why I told you take up a web app project and deploy it front end, back end, full stack. Deploy it so that you know everything, and then host it on GitHub. So that if anyone says uh, that Somal, this thing is not working. Can you parse the data this way? Can you parse the data that way? You should know why to parse it to JSON, and then what to do when I receive the data. So this basics should be very clear. If you're applying to only front end, then it's fine. But as you are starting out as you in your career as a software developer, you would need front end, back end, both knowledge, right? So
yeah.
first thing is to build a project, read those two books that I mentioned, and then move forward. There is no like shortcut to it. But this is a this process is also not boring. You'll enjoy it, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Last question will be, how will a participant receive his stipend?
Yeah, Aditya, how did you receive your stipend?
So there is this online platform. I think it's called Payoneer something. So we had to register with our account and stuff with the Payoneer. So it directly received in your accounts. You don't need to worry about it. You just need to submit that document. Some, I think, PAN card and something is required. But apart from that, you don't have to worry. You have to just fill in the form, and then you'll receive your stipend. There's no changes in that.
Okay. So these were the general questions. Now we have some specific questions for each speaker. I request Deepak to continue with that.
Yeah, am I audible now?
You could be more clear,
Hello, hello.
a little more loud.
Okay, okay. So let me start off with the other questions like from the participant and the specific questions. So the first question, like I'll ask the specific questions to Somal Bhai as of now. Uh, how have you applied your learnings from GSOC for the past year? Like after you applied, like what were the takeaways and like how you are doing right now?
So after my GSOC, I didn't sit idle for like at least a month. Like yeah. So from after my GSOC was completed, since then I've been working for the last 2 years. So I worked for three different companies, and right now I'm working for Quizizz. So after GSOC, what has happened is I have worked at a company building machine learning, like deploying machine learning algorithms, machine learning models
Yep.
that they had. So after that, I worked for another company for which I worked as an app developer. So I had to design everything from scratch and then do it. And right now, so if
Yep.
you ask me about what have you learned and how have you applied it, so I'll say after my GSOC ended, I figured out a lot of things I need to learn. Right. I didn't know
Yep.
much about testing. I didn't know much about clean code because the code that I used to write didn't go into production much. So what happened was it was released in beta version, and after GSOC also we're working on it because it's an app. It doesn't get built in 3 months, so we need to work on it and then
Yep. Yep.
put it into
Yeah.
production.
Yeah.
So that's why it took some time. So then I learned about all these things, and then I learned focused on backend and backend architectures. So yeah, that's what I said. You shouldn't follow my way because I have suffered because of what I have done. So you should learn about
Ha.
these things,
Yep.
complete projects, read those books, and then you'll be able to like really be an asset.
Yeah. So this is a different question. This is my personal question, Somal Bhaiya, to you.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you told me about like you were into different stuff like front end, back end, and then machine learning and stuff. So this is sort of like curious. Like even I sort of feel lost sometimes. Like there are so many things to learn. So how like you said you have been into problems. So I'd like to know like how could I face those challenges properly?
See, if you see, there are different rules, right? If you work as a software developer, your work would be only related to how do you make a product that works, right? So
Yeah,
you need to design the front, you need to work on front end, you need to work on back end, right? So if you want to be a software developer, then only focus on what I said, right? Build two projects, read those two books, that's it.
yeah,
But if you want to be a machine learning engineer, that's a different path. For machine learning engineer, you don't need to know everything in software development. Software development is, let's say, it's different. If you want to be a software developer, you have to follow a different path. If you want to be a machine learning engineer, in that case you have to do things
mm,
specific to machine learning engineer. That has nothing to do with the core. Like, need to have an idea about software engineering, but that is not that has nothing to do with a specialist software engineer. If you want to become a data engineer, or if you want to become a data science, then you have to read about those things, those algorithms. You need to implement those in
yep,
Python. But as all of you are, like, ultimately the goal, your goal would be to move to a different domain, or let's say you want to move to machine learning, you want to move
yeah,
to
yeah,
anything else. But the
mm,
first and foremost thing that is required is you need to know the fundamentals of software engineering. So at this early stage, you shouldn't be focusing on being an expert in machine learning, being an expert
yep,
in artificial intelligence. You can work on them side by side, but first get your software developments fundamental very, very clear, right? You need to know uh, what a company, if they employ you as an intern, what they will expect. So if some of you has done internship, you might be knowing that they will give you a task to complete, which should be a part of the project, not the entire project. So if you are given a part of the project, what are the things you need to understand? You can tell me.
yeah, yeah. Like get the basics right first, and then move on.
Yeah, let's say you're given a project that has front end back end in the same repo. Then you have like a massive code base. So if they ask you to write test for the code base, or let's say they ask that my customer design team, customer success team wants some tags to be added to this, can you make those changes, right? So when you have to write code, if you write let's say a variable name, that doesn't make sense, right? So let's say you write let I give an example of abcd instead of num1 num2. So if you write those sort of code, what
Uh,
happens is the mentor gets really pissed off, right? So firstly they'll ask you to make changes, they'll ask you to make the code more readable and stuff. So all those things you don't get if you keep jumping between, let's say I want to do machine learning today, then tomorrow I want to do artificial intelligence, uh,
yep,
something on it. Both are the same thing anyway. But yeah, if you want to do data science, you shouldn't keep jumping. Just first get your software development principles right. Because let's say if you want to do masters, so what people suggest is if don't specifically do masters on data science, or specifically do masters on, let's say, machine learning, do a masters on software development, like ms, or let's say mtech. But side by side keep your minor subject as those things, so that in future if you want to get a job, people will see you as a software developer and then as a machine learning engineer, right? So you
yep,
have various paths open. So same principle applies here. You need to have those two basics. So software development is like, if you have heard about stack, so a stack, how it piles up,
yep, yep,
the very at the very bottom there is something called clean code. On top
mm,
of it there is something called how you manage the code you've written, right? So you need to focus on only those things. Rest of the things, let's say if you want to talk about design principles or design architecture, anything, those things will be taken care by your mentor. Or if you become sd2 or sd1 also, they take care of these things. But in your internship you'll not take care of this. So if you're in first year, second year, third year, just focus on the bottom. I'll just link an article that you can read. Let's see if I have
yeah.
it.
That would be great, Bhaiya. Thank you.
Yeah, this article you can read. So they talk about, I'll share my screen once so that you can see.
Yeah, yeah, sure, for sure.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah, Bhaiya, we can see.
Yeah, so basically if you would be working as an intern, so you'll be working on these two bottom layers, right? So this is the entire stack where software development is being done, right? So these things, enterprise patterns, architectural patterns, all of these things will be done by the VP, right? These things will be done by your mentor, SD1, SD2, and these three things will be done by the intern, right? Let's say clean code, you have to write these things, take care of these things. Then object oriented programming, you have to take care. So this basics you need to fix. But unfortunately, what is being taught in our college or in our academics is not that practical, right? They prepare you for masters, but they are not practical enough to be applied in software development, let's say in a company, right? So so these three basics you can get fixed by those two books I've suggested. So if you're doing CP, because CP is important, and also if you're sitting for college placement, if you're doing CP, do that. But let's say you have an internship offer, you have already got an internship offer. Now you want, there is a 1 year gap between your actual work and then your offer, right? So in that
Yeah.
period, focus on these things, right? Read those books, then work on projects, start implementing projects, right? So because what happens is when you do these things, chances of you getting a PPO is very very high, and then you're getting promoted is very very high because your code is readable, right? The mentor is, because your code cannot be directly merged with production code, right? Your code
Yeah.
has to be reviewed by your mentor and then he will merge it to production. So if your mentor get pissed off by what you write, then there is very less chance, right? So we
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
this mistakes and we don't want you guys to do this. So yeah, pick up these habits so that you can do better.
Yeah, we'll keep those in mind, Brad. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the second question is like, this is also one of my personal questions, like being in second year. So I guess Aditya Bhai and Somal Bhai both could answer this. Uh, how do you rate DSA and open source? Like, what should be the perfect balance while handling this too? Maybe Aditya Bhai could start with this.
Yeah, okay. So what open source might be a bit of like application of DSA. So you need to know just basics of DSA because you need to understand the code. You need to, as Somal Bhaiya said, you need to be able to read the code or understand the code. For this, the DSA is required. And from my perspective, like not much of CP or not much of deep DSA required, but you need to have basic knowledge of DSA to contribute to any project, any code related project. Otherwise, if you're planning for the documentation and other stuffs for the GSOC, then obviously it's not required. So uh, that's how it is. Yeah. So maybe I would add something to it.
Yeah, so mostly if you working on a project, let's say in GSOC, you'll not mostly need to learn what is a binary tree or try these things, but you will definitely need to learn what is an array, right? How do you work with an array operations, and all the basic data structures. Because DSA, how is taught in our college, is to prepare you for not only software development, it is also to prepare you for, let's say, operating system fundamentals, right? So operating system needs binary tree, right? So in
Yeah.
that case, you will need the entire knowledge of DSA in some way or the other, but the basic data structures you will need for software development. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Somal Bhai. Thank you, Aditya Bhai. Like keeping those in mind, but we'll keep this question rolling. But before that, I guess we have Nabagata Saha Bhaiya, so joining us, and let me just introduce a brief about Naba Bhaiya. He is an experienced data scientist, skilled in Python and C++, has strong education profession with a bachelor's in technology from computer science engineering from NIT Warangal. His publications include improving facial emotion recognition systems using gradient and Laplacian images, and he has also published MSCE and Edge Preserving Robust Loss Function for improving super resolution algorithms, which has been featured in the International Conference on Neural Information Processing. Also, Naba Bhaiya, could you start off with your introduction as person?
Thank you. Thanks for the great introduction. Am I audible firstly? Just
Yeah,
want to
Bhaiya,
check.
you're audible, completely audible.
Thanks. So yeah, I completed my BTech in CSE from NIT Warangal, and I'm currently working at SAP as a software developer. And yeah, it's great to see you all.
So Naba Bhaiya, we have this question rolling like data structures and algorithm and open source. So how can one balance out and make the most of it?
Just a moment.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the question? I didn't hear.
Uh, how can one like make the most of data structures and algorithm and open source? Like what time one should dedicate and make the best out of it?
Right. So I think it has been a debate for a long time, like which one is more important.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
personally, I feel both should be given equal importance. And maybe it's a little subjective how much importance you want to give, but at least minimum experience you should have in both, so that once you come to industry, then you'll be able to handle the things very easily. So for DS perspective, obviously you need to have the fundamentals and also somewhat experience for clearing the grounds when the placements are happening. And from development perspective, uh, so if you don't have the development experience, then okay, maybe you clear the rounds and crack the job, but once you go there, your life will be a lot of difficult, right? So it's you have to maintain the balance. How much importance you want to give, it's up to you. But yeah, you
yeah.
cannot neglect any one of them.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Nabavaya. So, uh, we had this general question for you. Like, can you tell us more about how your experience had been with GSOC, the organization you're a part of, and what all things you learned along the way when you were a GSOC mentee?
Okay. Yeah, I can share my experience. I mean, I didn't get into the GSOC program, but I had applied, and that was a really good experience for me. So personally, I started during my second year, and I think that's the great time to apply for these programs. And at that point of time, I had a little bit experience in developing chatbots. And so when I was shortlisting all the organizations, Rocket.chat stood out because they were also working with chatbots, and I thought
Yep.
maybe I could help in some of the projects. So I went through the projects, and one of the projects I liked, and I started communicating in all the channels of Rocket.chat, and started talking how I could help in this project, and then accordingly I built the proposal. Parallelly, I was actually also applying at other places, so that didn't materialize. But in hindsight, I think that was a really great experience. And even though I didn't make it to the program, but that whole application process was really great for me. And even I really, whenever someone tries to come up to me and start asking about how to apply for GSOC, and I could explain them to in detail. And that's something I had done during my time at the college. Like I had advocated to a lot of people, do open source, participate in this GSOC programs, because there was very less participation. And yeah, so I think that helped a lot in that.
Yeah, Rocket.chat is like quite popular to this is like having participated. So like
Right,
I have been seeing on LinkedIn they have all these posts around. I guess recently they had a post on GSOC. So
right, right.
what I wanted to ask like what are the main tech stacks Rocket.chat works on? Like
So it's a chat-based system, right? So it's open source, and since it's open source, there is more adoption and more contributors than the proprietary ones. We all know what are proprietary ones. So why organizations are making this open source, because they get more feedback, and it also helps in building the company's reputation, because when you start small, you have to build your image in the community, and that's something open source helps out in that. You can make blog posts, or you can as you mentioned, make courses, or do some conferences or podcasts and stuff. So the project that I had chosen was something related to calendar integration with the Android app. And why I had chosen was because I had also some Android development experience. So yeah. That's pretty much about it.
Yeah, so like a lot of your project work was on Java, I'm guessing.
Yeah, true. Java, JavaScript. I think mostly was JavaScript.
Oh, okay, okay. So, uh, also, uh, how open source helped you? Like, what Gsoc taught you in sense that a normal program wouldn't have taught. Like, suppose if you hadn't been to open source, like how what change it brought? Like, let's say you didn't know about open source and now you know about open source. So, what's the basic difference between you and a general candidate who has not been open source but doing DSC all the time?
Right. So participating in open source helps in various ways. First, I mean, the most major one would be it has made me a better software developer. It has helped me in writing better code. As Somal was talking about, how it is, he showed all the stacks and how we need to write better code so that it doesn't get stuck in reviews. And that's something maintainers or even organizations in corporate like. And it also helps in networking. So you once you go into those communication channels, you network with a lot of people, and that helps you later on. Maybe it could help you in some career opportunities, or if you're stuck in some projects, you are looking for ideas. You'll just look back, see, I connected with this person, and he or she had this experience in that, so that would help. But you know what? Like, even though programs like GSOC, they are like what, 10 weeks long, right? So your open source doesn't have to stop. Contribution doesn't have to stop there. It goes 12 months, and even though if you don't make the program, you can still keep contributing, and yeah, that will help you in getting up to date with all the latest technologies that are there. And even if you don't know about them, you can start learning with the connections that you made. And yeah, so it will make you more refined as a software developer. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Namadaya. Like, great to learn from you. So, let's start with the questions from the participants. So, we have the overview about how GSOC was from our great speakers. So, let's start with the questions from the participants. We have, so uh, there's a question. It says, "Is GSOC like an internship?" So, would any of the speakers would like to take on this? Is GSOC like an internship? I guess it has already been answered, but if you all wanted to add something.
I think Somal can take that up.
Yeah. So the process is of internship, but you cannot call it an internship or mention it anywhere that it is an internship. It is a mentorship program. So the process is, yeah, it's really of an internship.
Oh, okay. So, uh, it has been conducted around what months, to be precise? Like, what was the main uh, duration of this project, like the program? Uh, is it safe to assume January to August?
No, basically, if you talk about when the program starts, it mainly starts around May. But when you should start preparing for it, it's right now.
Yeah. Okay. Mhm. So the next question is, uh, I'm just a beginner in programming. So can I crack Gsoc if I start now? If yes, then what should be my plan? I guess you recently answered it to just like
Yeah.
start from now. Yeah. So next question is, I have never done open source contribution in a big org. Should I apply for GSOC? I guess this is a fun question. We can start.
Before GSOC, I didn't also do much of open source. So it's
Okay.
during the preparation that you start pushing code, getting like, firstly you should know about GitHub, so that you can contribute, because you need to raise issues, solve issues. So those things center around GitHub.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's like the only prerequisites you should have, and some of the skills, tech skills.
yeah,
And if you shortlist, you have to shortlist which one you think you can contribute positively, and yeah, then start communicating with the
yeah.
organizations.
Yeah. The next question is how to approach an organization you have selected. I guess Somal Bhaiya gave a very detailed intro, like detailed explanation on this. But Somal Bhaiya, would you like to just brief it out like once again, like for the participants? The
Yeah. So do you want me to show the entire process again?
No, just a brief would be fine. You could share, but just a brief so that like people who are joining late or who had the question could like please know about it.
Okay. I'll just. Like, if the question is specific to whether how you should contact, then you have IRC channels. So let's say you want to contact MetaBrains. So I'll just share. So let's say you want to contact MetaBrains. So you will mostly find people like they'll have a mailing channel. So if not IRC, so most organizations have IRC. So if they don't have IRC, they'll have a mailing channel. So you can mail to ask. Otherwise, IRC is like open platform where you can chat. Yeah, and also some precautions. Do not ask about. Do not like text your mentor directly or any mentor directly. Ask everything in the chat, general chat, and then do not ask about very like detailed explanations of something. Ask if you can ask a few doubt updates about project, what you can contribute to. Yeah, do not ask what the project is about, then mostly people will hesitate to reply because that's a detailed question.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the same question I guess Kushagra Agrawal was asking. Like, do all orgs have an IRC portal? So that has been answered. So also
Yeah,
apart from the IRC portal, Bhaiya, there are different channels like Slack and also I guess.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I guess all the
Right.
organizations have.
There's an organization called CA Microscope. They have Slack. Then I think Anita B org has their own IRC, if I'm not wrong. So it depends on organization to organization. You just have to go to the details and check out which one it is. But yeah,
Yeah.
there is approach, and you can surely clear out your doubts.
Yeah, so to like summarize about IRC channels, so there are IRC channels, there may be Slack channels, and there's this general mailing list that people could follow. Yeah. So another question from the chat: are there any resource to understand an open source project? The code base is so massive. I guess this could be a big factor. Like the code bases are always very massive for these projects. So how could one go about it? Naba Bhaiya could take it from us, I guess.
Yeah, the code base would be massive, but the project which you are taking that might be, uh, with you only with one component, so you wouldn't have to check the whole code base. But even if you have to check, that's why you should have a head start. You don't start at the last week, so you go through the code base and try to not just skim through it, also try to execute it, make some changes and see how it's actually working. So that'll help you in getting an idea of what's actually happening behind the code.
Yep. Would you like to add Suman Bhaiya on this?
yeah. So you don't have see basically there will be resources to help you. So I just showed this. I'll show it again. So let's say you yeah, you want to study about an organization's project. Let's say want to study. I'm taking example of MetaBrains again.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's say you want to study MetaBrains projects. So you go to their Gsoc page, right? You let's say go to visit projects. Let's say you want to understand this project. So there'll always be something, a blog or GitHub code or any
Yep.
wiki, because it's a part of the Google Summer of Code. That the final evaluation, you have to explain your code and submit something, right? So when you press get the code, there mostly will be an explanation of the code, right? So you'll get to learn. Also, there are some links there you can visit. So you should spend a week at least to read this, and then once you download the code from GitHub, you have to make some changes, then implement as Nabagata said. You have to implement and then have the code running on. Let if it's an Android project, you have to learn I'm sorry, you have to run it on a phone or an emulator or something. So you need to execute the code and then read about the wikis so that you get an
So,
understanding.
so I guess this could also be a good exercise for code reviews for everybody who are just like
Yeah,
getting into
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So another question from the chat from Krishna. What if our proposal gets shortlisted at both the organizations? Do we have to complete the work for both the organizations?
If your proposal gets selected, firstly, you're very
No,
lucky.
I'll take this
It's a
Secondly,
up.
very good problem to have, actually.
Number.
Yeah,
hello.
so go ahead, Somal, go ahead. You can answer. Yeah.
Okay, so if your proposal gets shortlisted for both the organizations, you'll ultimately work for one organization. So Google must have,
So, you can't
yeah,
be like selected for two or more organizations. Whenever one organization finalizes a project or finalizes you as a participant, your application for other organization is declined automatically. So you have to work for two organizations. You don't have to work for two organizations. So yep, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. So a question I forgot to ask from Navabhaya is like, why is GSOC so popular?
Why Gsoc is so popular? It's being organized by Google and it has the most number of organizations. There are a lot of other such programs as well. I think I'm forgetting the names. There was Winter of Code. Uh, Somal probably could give me the names. But yeah, it's the most popular one, and most of the organizations, participate here. And also, Google has its own brand. So, but anyway, if you don't have to just participate in GSOC to get the open source experience. You can participate in any of the programs. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me move on to one of the other questions. Is web dev oriented organizations a good choice for applications considering the popularity of web development?
web dev is a wholesome thing. So if you learn web dev, see, and app dev is basically the front end of stuff, right? In app dev, you don't design the back end. So web dev you need to learn because you'll ultimately, as a software engineer, you'll need to have a wholesome idea of how things work, right? So it's better you start with web dev and then you pick up something specific and then work on it. So there is no such thing as web dev projects get selected. So the project, if you deep dive into a project, there are lots of things. Your project can only be fixing a UI. Your project can be something. If you're choosing operating systems, your project can be something at operating systems. So that entirely depend on what your domain is, right? So based on your domain, you
Yep,
can
yep,
pick up anything.
yeah. So Aditya bhai, would you like to add on this?
Yeah, exactly. Like as Sumar Bhaiya said, like web development projects are like wholesome, and you can contribute to a small part of it because you don't even in some of the huge projects, like you don't have to know whole code bases. You can just contribute to a small part, and you can just know about the part you are working on, and that makes it easier to like grasp things and to contribute fully to the project. So for my part, I was just in charge of adding a feature to the application, and I don't have to look to the other parts of the application, like how the other parts of the application are working, unless I have a bug related to my feature. So yeah, so you don't have to know whole code base. You just have to know how your thing works and how your project is working. So in that case, web development is really good, and yeah, similar to, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. So uh, thank you, Aditya bhai. Thank you. So another question from the chat is, yeah, even I have this question, like role of DevOps in software development and like how GSOC, other projects like focusing purely on DevOps in GSOC.
I think about the role of DevOps, Navabhaya can answer it because he's been working on with companies.
Yeah, I mean, there are specific roles as DevOps engineers in most of the organizations, so it is important. I'm not, yeah, and a lot of the GSOC organizations were already having those kind of projects as well. So it's good to have such skills. And if you have those skills and if you get selected in such projects under GSOC, then obviously you will stand out. If any recruiter or if you're going through any interview, you'll stand out from the other interviewers who don't have that experience. So it's obviously a good add-on to have, and yeah, just go through those projects and try to participate if you can.
Yep, yep. So I guess this is answered. And the other question is, which organizations are beginner friendly for the people who want to contribute to web development? I guess this is, I guess everybody could like take on this, like Aditya Bhaiya or could start off.
I personally felt the community of Anita org was really, you know, good for a beginner. There are some other communities where you might get overwhelmed, but as a beginner, I think that's a good one to start with. Aditya and Somal can add probably. Yeah.
Yeah, so am I audible? Yeah, so basically, not only for web dev.
Yep.
If you have any other domain, so there are mainly when I was doing, so there are mainly 11 categories in which you can apply, right? So not only web dev, it can be anything, right? So basically, how you find what organizations are there and which are beginner. So there is no such thing as beginner friendly. You should focus on which organization will have a chance of appearing again in Google Summer of Code. So if you have, let's say, I'll show you once again. So let's say you go to Google, search GSOC, and then here you let's say you talk about web dev. So you get a list of organization who has worked on web dev, right? So this is from 2016 to 2021, right? So you can go to 2021 and see which organizations have worked on web development. See, you can see web development. They have different topics, right? You can see these things, and then you can list out those organizations, and then
Mhm.
you can then figure out by what is their frequency of appearing. If they have appeared 4 to 5 times in the last 4 years or 5 years,
Mhm.
so that they have higher chance of appearing. So the organization which has appeared, which has higher chance of appearing next year, you will only apply to that organization. Nothing like you should not filter by which is beginner friendly or not, because anyway they have large code base. So beginner friendly is nothing. You have to be like good at something.
Mhm. Yep, totally. So this question is specifically for Somal Bhaiya.
Yeah.
MetaBrains is a big project. So what are the array of projects that MetaBrains have? Like the main tech stack it focuses on.
So MetaBrains basically works with metadata. So they have projects in various domains. So they have one project called Music Brains in which I worked. So the tech stack there is Kotlin because it is an Android app.
Mhm.
And then if you talk about, they have also machine learning projects as well. So in those projects, you apply the whatever machine learning stacks are required, right? So listen brains, acoustic brains, and then all these things. They also work with metadata, but they work with different languages, not only Kotlin, Java, Python. They also work on various other languages, which you can see obviously if you go to MetaBrains website, and then the method I've told you, you can go to GSOC website and then see their tech stack.
Yep. So that answers perfectly. Thank you, Bhaiya.
Yeah.
So this question is specifically for Naba Bhaiya. So, I guess it can be answered by Naba Bhaiya and Somal Bhaiya both the same. So, what weightage does open source hold in a participant's application when applying for a company? Like, how big a deal is for a company if you have been a GSOC mentee?
For sure. So if you have the open source experience, then the recruiter would know that, this student already has worked in an organization and in a project and knows how to deal with all the problems that are there, and also has worked on a industry level project. So you will stand out from the other students who don't have that experience. So even if you have, if you can clear the rounds like the other DS-based rounds, and your fundamentals are strong, and if you also have this open source experience, in any such programs, you'll obviously stand out, and that'll help you in getting the job or the internship.
Yeah. And so Somal Bhaiya, so would you like
Yeah,
to add
just
something?
to add to that, so if you from my personal experience, so if you have done Google Summer of Code, what happens is people know that yes, you have already achieved something and you are good at it, right? So what happens is, recruiter, you'll get priority while applying, because what happened with me was, when I was applying, so before GSOC, if I had to apply to some organization, I used to, so if you have heard about this platform called Angel List, so I reached out to a few startups that I wanted to work with them. So after GSOC, what has happened is, most of them gave an instant reply, and it was a positive reply, right? So when you have done GSOC, what happens is, people like, it's like shortlisting. It's a parameter of shortlisting. You get some priority. That's it. It's not that if you don't do Google Summer of Code, you're nothing. It's not like that. It just adds a badge to your level of achievements, and then your skills, and yeah, yeah, skills.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Somal Bhaiya. Thank you, Nabha Bhaiya. So
Just to
a
add to
question.
that, in some cases, you get the offers from the organizations itself. I've seen a lot of this happening. So you get the offer from the same organizations.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Yeah. So there's a question like it is basically upon before you being to GSOC. So what at that time of period, what was your main stack like before you applied? What were the stacks that you knew, like the knowledge base that you had?
Aditya, can you start with that?
Yeah, okay. So for me, it was basically Android development. For starting the Android development, I started with in first year, I guess, from a workshop from CSEA itself. So that was my beginning with the Android, and then I did some projects and learned about it, and then yeah. So at the time of GSOC, I didn't know which tech stack I will be going for. I was just searching for some organization like also some web organizations and some with C++ as I said. So yeah, so I was searching for them too, but then I found this organization where they had the a better on Android project, and I was like interested in that, so I went on with it. So that was my tech stack. And
Yeah. So to add to that, uh, basically, when you're choosing, so when I had to choose a tech stack, I didn't have an option, because my laptop wasn't that good to run Android Studio. So if you are buying a laptop, you should buy something that's at least supports. You should see the configuration. So I'd suggest that at least supports 8 GB of RAM and then SSD storage, right? So for me, I didn't have the opportunity to choose between tech stacks because my laptop wasn't that good. So I used to borrow my friend's MacBook, and then I used to work at night, and I used to study like in the evening and stuff. So if you ask me what tech stack I had, I only worked on Android Studio. But if it's about web dev, yeah, any laptop would work. But it's really important to choose something that doesn't kill your time, because you get entire day to prepare for GSOC. You should contribute hardly 1 to 2 hours a day if you are preparing from, let's say, January, right? So yeah, if you are preparing for something in Android, then choose a laptop wisely. If it's something in web dev, then you can do away with a normal laptop that has 4 GB RAM and not an HDD storage. So yeah, so choice of tech stack, it's a like, wholesome decision that you have to take after considering a few parameters.
Oh, awesome, Somal Bhaiya. Great story. So Nabha Bhaiya would like to add something to it, like the final points.
Yeah, I think I mentioned I participated during, I applied during my second year, and at that point I had some experience in chatbots, and so my tech stack was also mostly on web dev, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, so we are out of questions. Like, I probably everything about GSOC has been covered. Uh, uh, Thank you, Somal Bhaiya. Thank you, Naba Bhaiya. Thank you, Aditya Bhaiya. It was great, like, great experience talking you guys, like getting to
Yeah,
know about your story, and we really value you guys taking out your time to come here.
there is one question from Kushagra. I don't think we have addressed that.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure, sure, yeah.
So he's asking, he has built some full stack projects for small scale business. Uh, about scalability, right? So for scalability you will need a team. You alone cannot do it, because scalability would require your project to be like be broken up into microservices, right? You alone cannot handle all those things. So if you have a team, you can work with scalability, but if you only want to focus on software development, I'd suggest brush your skills on development.
Yeah, Kushagra, I guess this answers your question, and yeah, Kushagra says thank you. Thank you for joining, guys, and thank you, Suman Bhaiya, thank you, Naba Bhaiya, thank you, Aditya Bhaiya, for taking out your time. Like, I had so many questions, but time I don't want to waste much of your time. So, my thank you everyone for joining. Uh, we'll see you next time. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you everyone. Bye.
Bye.